Good morning, classmates. So, for today, we will be discussing about the causes of brain damage. So, let's start in defining what is brain tumor. So, a brain tumor or neoplasm is a mass of cells that grows independently of the rest of the body. So, a brain tumor is a growth of abnormal cells in the brain. So, we all know that cells are the basic unit of life or the basic unit structural in people. So, when the body is working normally, new cells form only to replace old or damaged cells. But when cells grow when they are not needed, they can accumulate to create a mass, or also called a tumor. So, there are types of brain tumors. First is the meningiomas tumor. So, this tumor is grow between meninges, the three membranes that covers the central nervous system. So, this tumor forms on membranes that cover the brain, specifically the brain and the spinal cord, just inside the skull. So, we can see it in the picture here. Next is encapsulated tumors. These are tumors that grow within their own membrane. Next, infiltrating tumors are those that grow diffusely through surrounding tissues. And next is gliomas. Brain tumors that develop from glial cells are infiltrating, rapidly growing, and unfortunately common. And lastly, the metastatic tumors. Tumors that develop from infiltrating cells that are carried to the brain by the bloodstream from some other part of the body. So, brain metastases occur when cancer cells spread from their original site to the brain. So, of course, any cancer can spread to the brain, but the types of most likely to cause brain metastasis are lung, breast, colon, kidney, and melanoma. So, let's move on to the cerebrovascular disorders or strokes. So, strokes are sudden onset cerebrovascular disorder that causes brain damage. So, a stroke occurs when the blood supply to part of your brain is interrupted or reduced, preventing brain tissues from getting oxygen and nutrients. So, our brain cells begin to die in minutes. So, what happens when you have a stroke? A stroke occurs when the blood's flow to the brain is blocked or a blood vessel in the brain ruptures. So, what are the common consequences of stroke? First is amnesia, aphasia, paralysis, and coma. So, there are two major types of strokes. First is the cerebral hemorrhage. So, this occurs when a cerebral blood vessel ruptures and blood seeps into the surrounding neural tissue and damages it. So, cerebral hemorrhage is uncontrolled bleeding in the brain. It can occur from an injury or as a result of a leaky or burst blood vessel. So this can happen when a blood vessel gets weakened enough that its wall can no longer withstand the pressure of the blood flowing through it. So that is cerebral hemorrhage. Next is cerebral ischemia. Cerebral ischemia is a disruption of the blood supply to an area of the brain. So it is a condition in which a blockage in an artery restricts the delivery of oxygen-rich blood to the brain, resulting in damage to brain tissue. So cerebral ischemia is sometimes called brain ischemia or cerebrovascular ischemia. So let's go to the closed head injuries. So brain injuries produced by blows that do not penetrate the skull are called closed head injuries. So for the brain to be seriously damaged, it is not necessary for the skull to be penetrated. In fact, any blow to the head should be treated with extreme caution, particularly when confusion, sensory-motor disturbances, or loss of consciousness. So let's talk about contusions. So these are closed head injury that involve damage to the cerebral circulatory system. Such damage produces internal hemorrhaging, which results in a hematoma. So a hematoma is a localized collection of clotted blood in an organ or tissue, or in other words, a bruise. That is contusions. So chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It is the dementia and cerebral scarring observed in boxers, rugby players, American football players who have experienced repeated concussive or even subconcussive blows to the head. Infections of the brain is an invasion of the brain by microorganisms. Or we can also call it as encephalitis. So it is often causes only mild flu-like signs and symptoms such as fever or headache or no symptoms at all. But sometimes the flu-like symptoms are more severe. So, di ba, naya ka na, di ba? Mga waray symptoms, bagat asya lagurit mas grabe nga sakit. And there are two common types of brain infections. First is bacterial infections. A bacterial infection is a proliferation of a harmful strain bacteria on or inside the body. So bacteria can infect any area of the body. So example, pneumonia, meningitis, and food poisoning are just a few illnesses that may be caused by harmful bacteria. That is bacterial infections. So second is Viral infections. A viral infection is a proliferation of a harmful virus inside your body. A virus cannot reproduce without the assistance of a host. So viruses infect a host by introducing their genetic material into the cells and hijacking the cell's internal machinery to make more virus particles. So let's talk about neurotoxins. These are toxins that are destructive to nerve tissues or causing neurotoxicity. Um, so neurotoxins are extensive class of exogenous chemical neurological insults that can adversely affect function in both developing and mature nervous tissues. So, what is neurotoxicity? So, this occurs when the exposure to the natural or man-made toxic substances alters the normal activity of the nervous system. This can eventually disrupt or even kill neurons, key cells that transmit and process signals in the brain and the other parts of the nervous system. Now, next is genetic factors. Genetic factors is an increased likelihood of developing a particular disease based on a person's genetic makeup. A genetic predisposition results from specific genetic variations that are often inherited from a parent. Or genetic predisposition is sometimes called genetic susceptibility. So, for example, if both of your parents have green eyes, you might inherit the trait of green eyes from them. Or if your mom has freckles, you might have freckles too, because you inherited the trait for freckles from your mother. That is genetic factors. So, the last topic is programmed cell death. So, what is programmed cell death? Sometimes referred to as cellular suicide, is the death of a cell as a result of events inside a cell, such as apoptosis or autophagy, or PCD is carried out in a biological process which usually confers advantage during an organism's life cycle. So, we have a picture here. So, from a normal cells to the cell shrinks, chromatin condenses, and then the membrane starts bleeding, organelles disintegrate until the nucleus and organelles collapse, or the membrane continues to bleed. And then apoptotic bodies formed, macrophages, phagocytosis, and no inflammation. So, if cells are no longer needed, they commit suicide by activating an intracellular death program. So, apoptosis pala is from a Greek word meaning falling off. Falling off. So, what causes programmed cell death? So, sometimes it is caused by external factors such as trauma or infection and occurs in several different forms. So, pwede mo ito makuha trauma or infection. So, that's all.